In this video, I'm going to cover what are the areas of personal growth. There are 8 core areas, and so I'm going to draw them out for you, and we'll have a little conversation about how you can expand yourself and grow in these 8 key areas of your life. So I'm going to share with you something called the Wheel of Life. Now, I didn't make this up, and I wish I could give credit to the first person who did make it up, but it's kind of a common tool that we use in the coaching industry. So thank you to whoever created it in the first place. This is my adapted version of it based on my own personal experience. This is the Wheel of Life. Oh, that was a pretty good circle. Think of it as divided into 8 pie pieces. So we'll start over here with the first piece, and that piece is health and well-being. And the reason I usually talk about this one first is that it's really hard to have personal growth and fulfillment in life if your physiology is suffering, if you're struggling with how you feel every day. It can affect your mood, it can affect your emotional state, your mental state. So your physiology, I consider it sort of a foundational component of who you are. And as I go around the circle, you'll see that I'm kind of building up. And if you're familiar with the chakras, you might see a little parallel there as well. So this first piece of health and well-being is all about how do you feel, your life force energy. This is everything from what are you eating, to how well are you sleeping, to do you have illnesses or maladies that you're struggling with. The health and well-being is an area that a lot of us, including me, will ignore when it's not doing well. When we don't feel great, we'll ignore it and we'll say, let me focus on these other things. Like for me, it was my career. I'm going to focus on my career and then I'll go take care of this thing once my career is taken care of. Now, the problem is not focusing on this really had a negative impact on my business. So this is the first and most important piece, in my opinion, to get right because it influences everything else. Now, the second part is something what I call your identity. And this is really your sense of self. This is your sense of who you are, your confidence in who you're being. My identity is rooted in this idea of being a very creative person. I'm clear that who I am is someone that's creative and loves to be in service of other people. But I didn't have that awareness for a long time, and I found that with my clients, a lot of times they come in and they want to work on their business, they want to work on their career, they want to actualize themselves in the world, but they don't have a really strong sense of who they are. They're not grounded in a strong identity. What that looks like is, for example, taking personality tests or Strengths Finder is a great tool to understand who you are on a deeper level. Identity really comes back to self-awareness, self-acceptance, and actually self-love. And so this part of identity is about coming back to our truest self, the us that's there, that was there even before society or culture or our families got a hold of us and told us who we should be. So highly encourage doing some inner work, deep work, in order to get really back to a center and your true self. The third area is, of course, money and financial. The money and financial piece, you might be surprised that I put this so early in the circle, that I consider it such a foundational piece. And the reason I do is not because I believe that money is so important or that we, must make money to be happy. It's more because money in this culture, in this world that we live in, offers a sense of security and safety. And on that note, it's really important because when we come from a place of feeling safe and secure financially, then we can start to focus on other areas of life. Now, if you've ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs or Tony Robbins' 6 human needs, which is based on Maslow's hierarchy, at the very core level, foundational level of human actualization is this need for safety and security. So I've put it here because it's something that needs to be taken care of. A lot of times we have a feeling, we have a sense or a belief that we need a lot of money in order to be happy. And what I found is that accumulating a lot of stuff, especially because a lot of us want to have a lot of money so we can have a lot of stuff and buy cars and clothes and shoes and bags. What I found is that all this stuff can weigh pretty heavily on us. So there's definitely a distinction here that I'm making between money and financial security and actually the accumulation or really the hoarding of a lot of material things. Now, the next piece is one that everybody loves, and this is actually love. Love and relationships. This is our social connections, our familial connections. I put them all into one. A lot of these wheels of life, they'll separate out family from social. A lot of times our friends and even our colleagues become our family. That because of the way that we connect with people and engage with people in a new way, where families are moving cross country and we're not really so focused on that nuclear family as we were maybe 50 years ago or more, that I think all love and relationships become a certain type of family. So this piece is really important to have. Like, you might think, oh, that's not so important. I don't need to have anyone. And rather than fight it or resist it, or kind of what we do a lot is like, I can make it on my own. I don't need anybody. Well, as a matter of fact, we really do need people. And so it's really important to foster the kind of relationships with people. And I believe it's especially important to foster those relationships with people who align with our vision and our values. Because of that strong need that we have to belong, if we're surrounded by people who don't align with our vision and values, we can start to believe that we're the problem and that we need to fix or change ourselves. So I highly recommend being very intentional about the relationships that we're building, the ties that we're creating, and the connections that we're fostering with other people. All right, the next piece is the part that I spent most of my young career focusing on, which is career/work. We spend, most of our time working and sleeping. So this takes up a huge chunk of our time. When I shifted my focus from what am I getting, how am I achieving and getting promoted and getting more money and raising up, when I focused instead on what am I giving, how am I contributing? How am I adding value? A lot of other things fell into place too, including the love piece. I started to find greater fulfillment with the people that I was doing work with. The money grew very quickly when I started really focusing on my personal development rather than just on my career achievement. In other words, put simply, the more I focused on this and the outcomes, the typical trappings of success, the less fulfilled and happy I was, and the less all of these areas were working. So the next piece is something near and dear to my heart, and this is play. Now, you might not think play is very important. Play is actually part of our human DNA. We evolved to be playful creatures. And if you want to look at our close cousins, the chimpanzees and other monkeys, you'll see how much they actually play. It's a really fundamental part of bringing us joy and happiness. So this can look like hobbies. It can be dancing or singing or painting or riding horses or any number of things that we can let go of having to achieve anything, and we can just be present in the moment playing. So that's a big part of life. So I invite you to consider, if you aren't playing and you haven't been playing, what are some things that you used to love to do? Think back to when you were a child. What did you spend hours doing that people couldn't make you stop if they tried? What are the hobbies? What are the activities that you naturally were drawn to? And consider, if you've let go of any of those, what would it look like to bring one or two of those back into your life? We are getting close to the end here. The last piece, I'm going to call it faith. Now, I want to be careful because I use this term and it has a lot of baggage sometimes. I don't necessarily mean religion. I don't necessarily mean God as in the sense that other people talk about God or religion, although it can be that. It certainly is wonderful if it is. And what I found for me is that it's a connection to something higher, a connection to something bigger. For me, this faith is really rooted in a love of the earth and of humanity. I spend time cultivating a sense of connection to the earth and to humanity. And for me, that has become a spiritual practice. For me, it involves stillness in the mornings, some journaling, and some practices that connect me more deeply to myself, connect me more to the other people in the world and connect me more to Mother Nature and also to whatever ineffable energy there is out there that's part of this whole thing that started this whole life ball rolling. So whatever that is for you, I invite you and encourage you to make sure that you have some sort of devotional practice in your life that honors that connection. And last, but certainly not least, is this contribution. Now, I did leave contribution for last, and not because it's less important than any of the others. In fact, they're all, like I said, it's all about expansion in all areas. That's why a wheel is the perfect image to use to represent this concept. Contribution is, what are you serving that's bigger than you? What are you doing with your life, with who you're being, that has an impact and leaves a legacy that's beyond you? So for me, my work is my contribution, and it goes much beyond just working. I have a connection to what I call my North Star, my purpose. I have a whole video on that you can watch, your North Star, how do you find your purpose? And specifically, this piece is really what drives me to focus on all the others. In other words, it's my connection to this North Star, which literally is to activate superstars like you to uplift humanity. This devotion is what drives everything else. It's what helps me stay aligned on every other piece, because when I recognize that I'm not fully in service and I'm not fully contributing my gifts, then I know that probably somewhere on this wheel, or multiple places on this wheel, are out of alignment. I hope this video has been helpful for you and that you've gotten some value out of it. If you want more of this type of content, specifically as it relates to building a purpose-driven, lifestyle-friendly business, then click on the link below and go download my Monetize Your Magic playbook, which is free and will help you figure out how to build a more aligned, energy-rich, contribution-focused business. See ya.